The room was blue as folded silk. The pane kept one small star. A hush from tired twilight lay on every waiting jar. My brushes stood in patient ranks, like guests who knew the hour. The floorboards held the last of night. The curtain bent and bowed below. A magnolia moved so lightly in the air. Its fragrance climbed the narrow stair, as if to find me there. Then on the glass my silhouette grew pale and fine and mild, as though the morning entering had asked to be let in. The blue before gold knows what the heart has almost said, and keeps it where the dark has fled. The blue before gold. No footstep crossed the attic stair. No voice disturbed the room. Yet every tray and silver cup seemed listening in the gloom. A teardrop gathered on the brush, then trembled into gleam. Not sorrow fit to bear a name, but sorrow near a dream. Outside the roofs were pearl and smoke. Inside the canvas bare began to hold a little more than emptiness and air. No serenade came up the stair. No trumpet broke the blue. But when the first faint brightness fell, it felt almost like truth. For some things do not come as joy, nor leave as griefs depart. They only lay a tender hand upon the listening heart. The blue before gold knows what the heart has almost said, and keeps it where the dark has fled. The blue before gold. The star went out upon the pane. The blue began to yield. I set one quiet color down, as though a vow were sealed. And long after the room grew bright and common morning rolled, something in me stayed very still inside the blue before gold.
Twilight had left the window glass. The cobblestones were bright. A little bell gave one soft sigh and crossed into the night.
The velvet kept the carriage warm. The brass rail held its gleam. silhouette beside the pane looked thinner than a dream.
We crossed the bridge above the cave, where starlight touched the black,
and every little silver chime seemed like a calling back, till the bell went faint. The whole dark city seemed to sway and pull old afternoons my way, till the bell went faint.
One woman left with parcel string,
one wan man with coat and cane,
their footsteps found the cobblestones,
then vanished into rain.
I should have kept my hat in hand
and let the car move through,
yet every stop the bell grew small
and sounded more like you.
The window kept one thread of star,
the wires gave back a sigh,
a little hush of reverie
rode softly passing by.
No serenade came through the street,
no voice spoke out my name,
only the rays beneath the floor,
and all the night the same.
And yet I think some partings live,
not in the heart alone,
but in the way one silver note
can make a city known. Till the bell went faint, the whole dark city seemed to sway and pull old afternoons my way, till the bell went faint. The final corner took the car, the lamps grew pale and few, still one last ringing crossed the bridge and traveled on with you.
The cleaner's glass was white with steam, the street outside was gold, and July hung in paper slips on wires neatly rolled. You stood beside the pressing board with starch upon your hand, the tickets clipped by number there, the suits in quiet bands. A woman brought a sailor blouse, a boy asked after cuffs, and from the back the iron breathed its little clouds of love. He came in near the closing hour, his hat held at his side. The dark suit waited brushed and warm, the collar opened wide. He said he must not keep them long, The church was across town. You found one grain of wedding rice where his left lapel turned down. Brush the lapel clean, brush the lapel clean. Let no small sign of other hands stay where it can be seen. Brush the lapel clean. I watched your fingers know how gently one may send a man where one must never go. You took the bone-handled brush and worked the cloth with care, not smiling at the rice grain, not asking who was there. The shop bell shook once in the heat. A streetcar crossed the square. He checked his watch and thanked you twice for saving him repair. My own brown jacket hung behind the counter, tagged and pressed. I had no cause to wait so long, no stain left to confess. But when you smoothed his shoulder seam and turned the collar flat, I saw how much a practiced hand can give and not take back. It was not envy, I would say, to steam and wire and wool, not envy of a chapel door, a carriage, or a rule. But certain grains of ordinary white can show a heart too well. What falls from someone else's day may stay where no one tells. Brush the lapel clean, let the dark cloth lie. Let him reach the wedding steps with nothing gone awry. Brush the lapel clean, no claim, no flower, no tear. Only your hand making him ready for another's year. The shop went dim, the iron cooled, the claim slips lost their shine. And on the floor, that little grain looked almost nearly mine. The optician's bell had hardly rung. The streetcars thinned toward 5, and dust along the counter glass kept little sons alive. He stood beneath the eye chart there, with lenses in a tray. The trial frames beside his hand, the afternoon gone gray. A schoolboy chose a tortoise pair, a clerk wrapped cases brown, and May leaned through the striped front shade upon the quiet town. She came in with her sewing bag, her thimble in one seam. She said the needle looked too small and tried to make it seem a thing that happens now and then, a nuisance, nothing more. But both her hands held tight around the handle at the door. He set the little silver frame across her careful face, then turned the dial lens by lens with unannouncing grace. The black marks blurred, then cleared, then blurred. She laughed and looked away, as if the room had caught her age too plainly in the day. He did not say the years had come, or ask how long she'd known. He only took the pointer down and lowered what was shown. One line larger softly said, "Then we shall find the right." And all the shop grew kinder there around her borrowed sight. Some pride is made of tiny things, a thread passed through the eye, a name read on a medicine box, a bus sign going by. And some men know the merciful can live in where they stand, not changing what the truth has said, but placing it near hand. One line larger, let the letters stay. Let the world come close enough to meet her halfway. One line larger, plain black upon the white, yet something in her lifted chin returned into the light. One line larger, till the blur gives way, till the smallest useful things come back into the day. One line larger, no comfort spoken through, only a careful chart brought down where failing eyes could do. At closing time, the case is shut. The pointer found its wall, and in the glass one lowered line still answered for us all.
Twilight leaned on window glass. The cobblestones were bright. A phonograph behind the bar turned low into the night. The waiter moved in quiet shoes. The lamps were velvet dim. Your cup still kept a little steam, though you were gone from him. The door had closed a moment past. Its brass still held a sigh, and all the rain along the pane looked slower than goodbye. The chair by the window still faced the place where you had been. held the hush you left within. The chair by the window, your silhouette stayed for a while, in glass and amber light, as if the room could not yet lose the shape you wore tonight. A teardrop trembled, never fell. I would not let it show. The marble kept your folded check beside the afterglow. The phonograph grew soft and thin. The rain kept time outside. A little reverie of smoke went drifting with the tide. No serenade came through the door. No word returned your name. Only the chair, the cup, the pane, the room that stayed the same. And yet I think some evenings keep a tenderness unknown, where one chair waits beside the glass and learns to stand alone. The chair by the window still faced the place where you had been, and held the hush you left within. The chair by the window. The lamps grew small, the rain grew fine. The last cup lost its heat. Still one chair by the window kept your absence in its seat. Below, the druggist draws the shade. The stair smells faint of snow. Upstairs, the little signal lamps begin their evening glow. The galoshes by the stove leave commas on the floor. 3 folded slips lie face side down beside the wicket door. You sit before the walnut board with chords in black and sleeve turned back above the wrist, one pencil at the ledge. The county bells come thin and quick. You answer without haste, and fit one shining plug to one as neatly as to lace. I came to ask for Dexter 5, a simple call, no more. But heard you say, go on, she's there, and close the booth door. A mother from the Ridge Road line, a grocer by the square, someone whose voice kept breaking up because the snow was there. You held the circuit breathing soft while all the shops below went dark one after one along the street under the snow. The line stayed open, the line stayed open. Past the hour, the druggist turned his window shade, till every far-off halting word found the ear for which it stirred, and no one had to leave the night half made. The line stayed open, the line stayed open. There are hands that carry parcels, there are hands that hem and mend, there are hands that keep a wire from breaking at the end. You never heard the whole of it, you never asked to know, yet something in the way you waited taught the voices how to go. The line stayed open, the line stayed open, long enough for one last yes and one more county name. And when at last you drew the cord, the room was only wood and board. But I had seen how kindness works without a sign or flame. The line stayed open, the line stayed open. You wound the fallen chords in loops, set both receivers down. The snow kept whitening at the curb, the clock hands crossed the town. I never placed my call that night, I stood until you rose, and all the way home every wire seemed humming through the snow.
Twilight had left the window glass, the cobblestone shone blue. A little bell gave one soft sigh and pulled the dark streets through. The velvet kept the carriage warm, the brass rail held the light. My silhouette beside the pane looked thinner in the night. One woman left with parcel string, one man with coat and cane, and all at once the city grew like fog upon the pane, the fog on the pane kept all the lost streets drifting by and made them softer to the eye, the fog on the pane. We passed the florist, shuttered down, the baker's darkened wall. A thread of starlight touched the wires above the midnight call. I had not meant to lift my head or let remembrance stay, yet every blurred and silver block looked half a world away. The bell grew small, the windows dim, a reverie came near. The city moved in light and smoke and left its hush in here. No serenade came through the car, no voice spoke out my name. Only the glass, the rails, the dark, the city just the same. And yet I knew some evenings keep what daylight cannot feign. A whole old life returns a while in fog upon the pane, the fog on the pane kept all the lost streets drifting by and made them softer to the eye, the fog on the pane. The tram moved on through sleeping blocks, the lamps grew faint and small. Still one last blur upon the glass, stay tender over all. The pier lights shake along the boards, the ticket girls are gone, and in the booth behind the games the painted moon leans on. You stand beside the canvas screen with salt upon your sleeve, a tray of silver flashbulbs spent too warm yet to receive. The roller skates have quieted, the prizes hang half low. A paper horse on painted springs still rocks when no winds blow. The last young couple step inside with laughter almost shy. He drops his cap beneath the stool, she lifts her flowers high. You turn the crescent by one nail to catch them in its curve, as if a wooden moon could give the grace they both deserve. The painted moon, the painted moon was only bored and borrowed blue above a canvas dune. The painted moon Yet when you said it right, two ordinary faces found a softer kind of light. You tell them not to move too soon, then count beneath your breath. The bulb goes white, the curtain jumps, the whole room startles left. He laughs and finds her gloved hand there. She smooths her little veil, and you slip out the paper strip before the colors pale. I wait outside with nothing lost, no picture left to claim. Only the smell of salt and bulbs and how you say his name. You trim the edges with your shears, then place the portraits flat. And all the summer I had kept seems suddenly like that. Years will take the penny games, the booth, the pier, the shore, the paper moons that lovers used to stand beneath once more. But I remember how you turned that crescent with your hand, how something made for make-believe could tell the truth and stand. The painted moon, the painted moon still hangs for me in August air, a little out of tune. The painted moon, not sky, not pearl, not flame, only the light you gave to them and never gave my name. The booth goes dark, the bulbs grow cool, the tide begins below, and on its nail the wooden moon keeps shining where I go. One bell let go the air, the rails receive the rain, a silver wash on window glass made blue of every pane. We passed the shuttered baker's shop, the tailor's darkened sign, the cobblestones below the car went drifting out of time. At the old stop, I rose before I knew I rose, to follow where no footstep goes. At the old stop, two strangers reached the little door and stepped into the rain. Their footsteps crossed the shining curve, then thinned from ear and pain. An awning dripped above the street, one window kept a star. The place I once called home at night was only where we are. The conductor faced ahead. The lamps grew pale and thin. A little hush of reverie came traveling softly in. No grand farewell had marked that door. No trumpet split the blue. Yet habit, like a faithful hand, still lifted me toward you. I had not meant to leave my seat, nor trouble what had passed. But one small stop along the line could gather up the past. At the old stop, I rose before I knew I rose, to follow where no footstep goes. At the old stop, the tram moved on in silver rain. The wires hummed overhead. Still somewhere on that empty curb, my shadow stood instead. And long after the final turn, and long after the blue grew soft, my heart kept hearing midnight shoes at the old stop. Twilight thinned along the pane. The embers breathed below. A phonograph began to play in little turns and slow. I moved the velvet chair aside. You folded back the throw. The rug lay open, warm and wide, where evening used to go. Your silhouette came through the blue, in slipper, sleeve and grace. And all at once the room I knew grew younger in its place. When the needle trembled, we kept the old waltz moving light, and held the measure through the slide. When the needle trembled, you said, my darling, not too fast, so softly, with a smile. The little record, thinning, cast its sigh from file to file, It caught one breath, then found its way. And so, to my surprise, we turned as if the smallest sway could keep the song alive. The starlight touched the window glass. The fire gave back its gold. A reverie moved through the room, more dear for growing old. No serenade came through the street, no silver trumpets shone, only the faith beneath our feet. When all the day was gone. And then I knew what love can do. When brighter years have dimmed, it hears the music falter once and dances with the hymn. When the needle trembled, we kept the old waltz moving light and held the measure through the slight. When the needle trembled, the stair comes up behind the nave in one close turning flight. The sexton shakes the runner out, and dust goes blue on white. You stand beside the loft rail there, with 3 books on your arm, and lay the ribbons page by page, as if to keep them calm. The organ has not found its breath, the choir bench still is bare, and mine is opened, ribbon laid, before I reach the stair. You test the pitch pipe once, then stop, too soft for downstairs ears, then brush one cold smudge from the rail that gathers every year. The ribbon in the hymnal, red against the fading line, makes the old words seem to know they shall be found again in time. The ribbon in the hymnal, that was your way, and now it stays in mine. When winter pressed the early dark against the colored glass, and tired voices climbed the stair, too late, too cold, too fast. You never asked for any thanks. You never raised your tone. You only marked the place to sing and made the place feel known. The ribbon in the hymnal, red against the evening brown, still tells the hand that opens there where to begin when light goes down. The ribbon in the hymnal, some kindnesses are made that small and sound. The benches fill, the first chord comes, the lamp burns near the wall, and in the book you left for me, your quiet care outsings us all. The rails were brushed with rain and blue. One bell let go the air. The city, half in starlight now, lay folded everywhere. A woman left 2 stops ago. Her gloves were ivory pale. The door side shut, and all at once the car seemed made of hail. Not cold in truth, but clear and thin, as certain hours can be, when every pain returns your face more softly than the street. Then one small turn along the line brought shuttered shops in view, and all the old familiar blocks went strange and dear and true. After the last bell, the city keeps what day forgets. In rain, in wires, in silhouettes, after the last bell. The cobblestones below the glass gave back a broken gleam. A barber pole, a darkened stair, a sign cut through with steam. No voice called out, no footsteps stayed, no door was left ajar. Yet somehow every quiet thing seemed intimate and near. My hand moved once against the pane and left no mark to keep. The rain took hold of where it was and drew it into sleep. No serenade came down the street, no bright farewell was said. But when the tram light crossed my sleeve, I thought of words long dead, and how some loves do not depart with thunder, flame, or fall. They only learn to ride the dark and answer when you call. After the last bell, the city keeps what day forgets. raining wires in silhouettes after the last bell. The final corner bent toward dawn, though dawn was still afar. One roof kept back a little light, one pane received one star. And long after the conductor passed, and long after the rails fell still, my heart went on through that blue hour, as if it sometimes will. The shop fan turned the patterns up and laid them down again, while August held the window glass in heat too tired to end. You stood beside the repair bench there, with oil along your nail, the belts in black and rubber loops, the bobbins in a pail. A girl came in for navy thread, a tailor asked for chalk, and every footstep on the boards made a little wooden talk. The widow brought her singer in, wrapped round with kitchen twine. She said the wheel had caught last night and would not keep the line. You lifted off the cover cloth, then paused beneath the glare. A bent needle in the hammer foot was still held crooked there. Leave the needle there, leave the needle there. Not every broken little thing is ready for repair. Leave the needle there. I watched your fingers stay, as if the work it failed to finish had not gone away. The counter fan pushed warm air back, the street lamp found the floor. A busboy crossed the alley twice with dishes from next door. You turned the hand wheel half around, then let the motion cease. The thread still held a strip of white, no wider than a sleeve. She looked at it and touched her throat, then said, almost too low, it was his Sunday shirt, I think. The cuffs were left to sew. You did not ask how long ago, or offer softer thread. You only set the screwdriver down beside the words she said. Some labor stops without a sound, a seam left out of true. The cloth remains beneath the foot, the hand has gone from view. And some who mend the common gears know when the gentlest art is not to make the wheel move on, but leave the stop place part. Leave the needle there, let the bent point keep the little hold it still has made on what she could not keep. Leave the needle there, no comfort dressed as fact. only your hand refusing yet to hurry sorrow back. At closing time the bells hung still, the fan gave up its air, and in the lamplight on the bench, that small bright bend stayed there.
The presses had not thundered yet. The street was milk and gray, and in the room above the trucks, the headlines waited day. She stood beside the galley tray, with ink along her thumb, the copy spike already full, the linotype gone numb. A kettle hissed behind the door, a foreman rubbed his eyes, and April pressed against the brick before the papers rise. One column told of market wheat, one named a missing boat, one carried birth and weather there in narrow lines of notes. She bent above the proof sheet then, not hurried, not severe, and found one wrong small letter where a widow's name stood clear. One red proof mark curved around the wrong, small enough to vanish when the morning moved along. One red proof mark, no trumpet and no flame, only a careful hand that kept a sorrow with its name. The page boy brought another stack, the night desk called for space, a clock above the pasteboard wall kept powder on its face. She crossed the letter cleanly once, then wrote the right one in, as if the dead deserved at least the dignity of print. The roller stirred below the floor, the whole room seemed to lean. The corrected slug was lifted out and set back into scene. No one thanked her for the change, no one paused to see, but in that line a life went out, as true as it could be. Some work is done before the town has washed its window glass, before the hats and breakfast rolls, before the milk carts pass. And some mistakes are small to all, except the ones who know a letter wrong, a name unheld, a grief not fit to go. One red proof mark, bright beneath the lamp, held the paper back a breath before the plates were stamped. One red proof mark, plain as work can seem, yet all the city woke to news made kinder than a dream. At 6 the trucks went coughing out, the floor began to shake, and on her thumb the red remained long after daybreak.